So excited today for our guest, Sandra Kearney. She's the CEO at Human Power Solutions, which is focused on helping companies grow through change and create an engaging culture. Sandra, thank you so much for being here. Please tell us anything else about yourself you'd like to add and a bit about what your background is and what you guys do at Human Power Solutions.
Yeah, thanks for having me today, Nikki. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you and your client base. We are Human Power Solutions was incorporated in 2019 after myself working in this training and development space for about 4 years prior to that. And what we found was that companies were not really able to tailor their trainings to what they really needed and what their companies needed. So our company is really based on tailoring content and deliverables to exactly what the client is looking for. A lot of times training companies have different cookie cutters, programs are very generic. They kind of pay someone to come in and just deliver and death by PowerPoint per se. And we're very much into using the technology, lots of facilitation and conversation. So that's really what our goal is, to help to change the culture and retain your employees, because it's a tough market out there right now. My background, I am a serial entrepreneur. I love to run businesses. I owned a fitness center for 7.5 years. It was a corporate-based fitness center. We very much focus on employee wellness and in making sure that people's mental health and their physical health were right on board. So we've been able to incorporate that into Human Power Solutions as well. That's one of my passions. I'm a mother of 3. Kids are 25, 23, and 21. I've got 2 beautiful grandkids who are 5 and 3. So life is very full right now. It's really exciting.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. It sounds like your cup runneth over, and I love to hear that for amazing people. And very, very glad you're so blessed.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about your why, if you don't mind. I mean, I think you kind of captured your passion for entrepreneurial spirit, but really, what drives you? What's your key motivation?
Oh, key motivation for me is my family. I just really want to be a great example to my daughter and to my sons, my grandkids, and that's really what motivates me every day, getting up and knowing that, we can make a difference in companies, in their culture and with their employees, and, touching people in a way that reaches more than just the business side of things, but really helps them, develop as people as well.
Yeah, that's something I've always noticed in my own career in leading teams, is that when you really create that engaged and connected culture, the benefits they always translate to business results. Happy, engaged people do better work and drive better revenue. But
pretty much
the most satisfying part of it is feedback from people saying, I'm happier, my marriage is better because I have better work-life balance. Like, the intangibles have always been what stood out to me. Kind of taking a similar approach has never been my primary focus, but that is, testament. I really am driven by servant leadership, which is a lot of what you kind of do and embody. With that said, what do you wish more people understand about the impact of providing an engaged and connected workplace culture?
I think, a lot of times people are just looking at productivity, what the numbers look like, profitability, and, they forget that there's humans that are actually performing the tasks and performing the work. So I'm not saying all companies, but lots of companies just, this is your task, this is what you need to do, and go get it done. And there's not a lot of thought process behind maybe what's going on with that person. So, a lot of what we're doing now, especially in this hybrid environment where you're not connecting and seeing your employees face to face as much, is really trying to talk with people about, hey, take that 5 minutes to, just connect with the employees or with your peers even. It doesn't take that long, but it makes a huge difference. That's really what I wish people would come away with. We do an exercise in some of our retreats and some of our things. It's called a walk and talk. And, you pair off with someone that you don't really know in the company, and each one of you has 5 minutes to talk about whatever you want. But it gives, in 10 minutes, you can learn a lot about a person and just start to connect on different levels.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, like, we're all in it together. We're all one. Like, we all have the same challenges in life, and it's removing that piece from your professional life and just pretending to be somebody who's always got it all together. It's kind of draining on us. Those just brief moments and being like, oh, you're human too. Yeah, life is hard. Yeah. Just makes you feel more excited. So what would you say to a business leader who, you kind of mentioned a lot of them sense this, but maybe struggling with really focus on productivity. And I find that comes from a good place. They're like, it's my job to drive productivity so I can pay my people and employ them and keep them employed. So what we're trying to do, and forgive me if I'm speaking for you, please correct me, but what we're trying to do is get them to combine the two so you can create that productivity, pay people a fair living, but also be making a real difference in their quality of life. And so with that said, what would you say to a business leader who senses that need for culture change, but just doesn't know where to start?
I would say to start off with some assessments, doing something for your team, figuring out who your team, what the makeup of your team is, whether it's predictive index or DISC or EQ assessments, start off by just getting some data. A lot of times business leaders will run off of emotion, right? And so if you gather some data about your team, then you can build your programs and your employee culture programs around the natural tendencies of your team. So a lot of what we do is we bring in our PI partners, our predictive index partners to help with that. But we also have partners that do DISC and do insights. So really whatever, the science is all the same behind all of them. It's just how you use the tools. Figuring out which tool works best for you, get the facts, get some data, and then, engage someone to help you to, create the culture that you're looking for. Because the culture in a bank is going to be different from in a restaurant. That's going to be different from, someone in hospitality, which would be different from an engineering company. The makeup of people are different. So.
Right. Yeah. Their needs, their wants, their values differ by vertical and by culture and things that attracted them to that position in the first place.
Exactly.
So I notice, and being newer to this particular environment within the healthcare revolution and really driving culture change, I'm always aware that we use a lot of buzzwords. I'm somebody who shifted industry several times in my career. And I remember very early on, I sat through a meeting and at the end I went up and said, I think I have an idea what's going on. Pretty clear on it. I just need the acronym glossary. And I got quite the laugh. I was like, what? I was like, well, yeah. you guys are speaking, it was technology at the time, which has more acronyms than almost any other industry. I was like, well, you guys are speaking a different language and it doesn't seem to exist. So is it documented anywhere? Like, no. So I created it. I made my own acronym glossary to help people I brought on my team. But we use a lot of buzzwords. So kind of what does an engaged and connected workplace culture mean to you in layman's terms?
In layman terms, it means that people are coming in the morning or they're connecting early in the morning over coffee, whether it's over a Zoom coffee chat or, just kind of coming in and everyone greeting one another, having that sense of this is what my job does. This is what I do for my job. But if I don't do it well, it's going to affect Sally down the, in the other offices. So that engaged culture is really having everyone understand what each other's roles are and how you in your role affect others, whether it's, good, bad, or indifferent. So those employees that don't care, that are just coming in, punching the clock and doing their thing and their heads are down, that's really what is not a good situation for any company. So that engaged culture is, everyone working together, understanding each other's roles, and having the ability to be able to express an opinion respectfully, be heard. And maybe your suggestion doesn't fly, but at least you've been heard and you've been acknowledged. So that's really that's what I think is an engaged culture.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I mean, you're kind of describing creating a sense of community within your workplace. And in my experience, one of our unifying things as humans is wanting to help others. Wanting to serve. I think that is something that just gives us the most value. And so when you can bring that into the workplace, it's really a beautiful thing. Like you said, kind of, well, how's that going to affect Sally? She's got to do this, and this is how she's measured. So I better come through. I got to help her. And then it creates that pay it forward mentality. Yes. Have you observed that in some of the companies that you've helped transition their culture?
I have as one company right now that we're currently working with. They're in different sites, they're in different locations, and they were very much in silos. And as we've talked about this more engaged culture, the managers have been talking to each other and asking each other for help and working together with this labor shortage, sharing resources, which they had not done before. And so our meetings have been and our trainings are only 2 hours, once a week. So it's not like we're in 8-hour trainings. We're doing little chunks, 2 hours once a week. And each week they're more engaged. They're talking about their success stories. There's less stress with the management team. There's still the issues that they have with retaining and hiring, but the retention is starting to stay because of their better communication. They're doing better with empathy and just taking some time, doing some coaching. So it's been great to watch.
Yeah, that's amazing, and kind of makes me think. You mentioned like 2 hours a week to drive this kind of change. Do you find that to be the best approach? And have you tried the alternative, like trying to make change really fast? And why did you land on that being kind of the preferred method to do a 2 hour training per week?
Yeah, we do between 2 and 3 hours per week, because we just found that if you spread out the training and the development, you're able to give like small snippets of skill sets. So here's a skill to try, over that week, and, just try this one thing and see how that feels. Come back the next week, what worked, what didn't work, how can we make this better? And then give them some more. Those 8-hour trainings, 4 days in a row where you're off site. I mean, people just, you lose people. So especially over Zoom, you can't do a lot. So it's really about making sure that what you're delivering is impactful. It's giving tools, you're helping with a process, and, it's being reinforced each and every week over a period of time. So that's what we have found.
Yeah, I mean, that just begs the bigger question of like change in general. I think as in human nature, like when we're ready to change, we're like, all right, I need to be a different person tomorrow. I'm ready, so therefore change. But the reality is it's one step at a time. You got to put one foot in the other. And all of a sudden you look back and you're like, whoa, what happened? I'm different. So
well, I mean, think about with weight loss, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I owned a fitness center for 7.5 years, and that 100-pound weight loss or that 50-pound weight loss didn't happen overnight. You have to make, little changes, like make sure you drink, your half your weight in water, like get to that point, and then, work on what time you're eating and et cetera. So it's the skills, right? You need certain skills to be able to achieve that change. And then suddenly, like you said, 6 months, a year later, you look at yourself and like, wow, I'm completely different. So.
Yeah, I think that's such a great analogy, because it's something that's just universally appealing. We've all been different shapes and sizes in our lives. What are some of the results that you've observed with employers who prioritize learning and development in a truly engaging workplace culture?
Employee retention. So the companies that are focused on learning and development, continuing that culture of learning, definitely are retaining their employees. That we're definitely seeing. Those companies that are strictly, based on profitability, which absolutely, they want the profitability to be able to pay their people. Now, I get that, but if they're not showing empathy and they're not really, looking at that motivation piece, those soft skills, which I hate that word, they're really essential skills. If they're not focused on those essential skills for their employees, they're losing people. So.
And what are some of those soft essential skills that need to be focused on to prevent losing people? Your key talent.
Yeah, your key talent is really the communication. It's universal communication. It's listening more than talking. Understanding where people are coming from. This going back to work has been it's been very difficult making those decisions with the Delta variants. It's been starts and stops, and companies that are just, nope, we're going back to the office and no one has a say in that. This is what we're doing. That's been a challenge. So I think the biggest skill people need is listening.
Yeah, amen. I think we can all always improve on our listening skills and being an active listener. That's just something that you have to kind of prioritize, because, we're all inherently selfish and want to talk about ourselves. True story. So in your opinion, whose role in an organization should be making the final decisions around corporate culture?
Ooh, that's a tough one. So I think the employees are a big part of driving the culture, and it's up to the C-suite, the CEO, CHRO, to model what the employees are looking for. So, for example, if we have a management or an ownership group in a company that is kind of unplugged from their employee base, if that manager or owner starts to, go out to the field and talk with the employees and starts to model that behavior, the managers will all follow suit. So it starts from the top, but the employers need to understand who is their employee base. What is it that they're looking for as far as culture is concerned? That's so the employees will set the tone. Everybody else at the top needs to drive that culture.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And like follow up from your perspective, kind of living in this world, do you see it working that way, or do you see it typically coming from top down instead of the other way around?
It's top down.
Yeah,
and for the most part, it's top down. This is what I feel like company culture should be, without really knowing the data and having the facts.
Right. Or what your employees want. Like, what do your people want in order to be loyal and stick with you and perform their best? It's a fallacy to not ask and find out. It's that knowledge.
Yeah, and also not to provide the tools, right? So it's like, if your employees, ask them what they need for tools. What do you need? Like, what is it that we're looking at doing? And, a lot of things happened over these last 18 months, where technology was tossed on people. How much training did you do? How effectively are you using Teams, or how effectively are you using Slack? Do people know, really how to make it really work for them in terms of their communication, creating channels and things like that. And, a lot of times we'll come into companies and they're like, yeah, we implemented this and we did this. And like, all right, how well do people know it? Well, we just use it the basics. Well, you're not serving your employees at all that way, or yourselves, because the productivity, if you can utilize this technology, which is fantastic, maximize the use of it, your productivity, engagement is all going to go up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've worked remotely since 2004, both as an individual contributor, leading teams, freelance consulting, and in a variety of roles. And it was interesting to me throughout the pandemic with the transition to virtual. It's what I've always done, really. I've worked in an office a couple times, but really my career has been spent remotely. So it was interesting to me, the challenges with things like Teams, even Zoom, being really outside of somebody's comfort zone. They've never done it. And they're like, I don't want to be on camera. I don't know where to look. And, not understanding the depth of the tools. This is just a simple conversation, but with breakout rooms and different kind of features and functionality and polls that you can create, not really understanding what tools existed to facilitate a virtual environment, let alone having training on said tools, because there's a million. I kind of joke at all times, like, everything exists. We've invented it all. It's just finding what works for you.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of shifting gears for a second into personal life. I love asking this of really empathic people, which you clearly lead with empathy and model that. What's the best compliment you've ever received in your professional life? Toot your own horn. You deserve it.
Yeah, no, I think just the fact that I can listen. And actually, I was sitting with someone yesterday, a prospective client yesterday, and we were going through some things, and he looked at me and he said, "You're funny, you're engaging, and you're really smart, and you obviously know what you're doing." Which, I thought that was really great, because he was a very strong personality, very rough around the edges, I guess you could say. And I just kind of gave it back to him. So I can meet anyone where they're at. And I think that's one of the skills that I do have. And I care a lot. So people will tell me that, quite a bit. So when I owned the gym, we had about, 600 members, and anyone that came in, our staff was trained to know everybody's name. So whenever anyone walked in, it was, "Hi, Joe. Hi, Steve. Hi, Mike, hi, Karen." And so, just making people feel important. I think that's what.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. And kudos, because I think, that takes a tremendous amount of vulnerability to create that space to meet people where they're at. And that can be scary. Being really vulnerable is you have to push outside your comfort zone to do it, but the results are beautiful. I like to joke. I mean, my favorite thing to do is to meet strangers with love. That's really something I'm passionate about. So it's not something I talk about a lot, or that will have any presence ever on my social medias. It's just something I do for myself. But I'm kind of overwhelmed in the world that we're living in, the feedback that I've received from that, and the fact that I cry with strangers multiple times every single week, and just that connection. And I believe I believe that we can bring that to the work environment where we're so connected that we're literally crying together, passionate about driving the same things, and truly connected and engaged. And I think right now we all need connection more than ever. So kudos to you for kind of living and embodying that and getting the results and the feedback about how many people you've impacted as a result.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, on the flip side of that, typically people who are change makers and have a focus on being disruptive and revolutionary, along with that comes the haters, especially if you're getting results as you are. What's an insult you've received in your professional life that you're actually proud of?
That I'm too authentic.
Sorry.
I share too much. So sometimes people, they're not comfortable with that. I've had a lot of things happen in my life, and some have not been very good. And sometimes people get uncomfortable with that. But I find it be very important to share my story and to, share my journey and, and let people let it sit how they may. So some people don't like that, but I don't care.
Good. I mean, let them not like it. Without darkness, there is no light. Like that's what sharing your light is shining a light on the darkness, despite our hardships and all the challenges that we've all been through, choosing to be the light and share it. So I agree with you. I would not take that as an insult. It's just, hey,
It's what it is. Yeah.
Is what it is. I want to shift gears a little bit to kind of storytelling. And do you have a favorite employee experience story or two centered around culture change that you can share with everyone listening?
Yeah, I was working with a community center with a group of leaders, and there was a young lady. She was probably in her early 20s and been new to the leadership team and just trying to figure out her way. And she and I ended up just having a good relationship, a good rapport. She would call me in between sessions and ask me advice. And, we had a really good relationship, and she ended up enrolling in school. And she said after our personal productivity course, she realized that if she wanted to do it, it needed to become a priority for her. And so she's enrolled in school to go get her bachelor's. And she said that would never have happened without the training and, our relationship and things like that. So I love to see the fact that, this young, bright lady is going to shine wherever she goes, whatever she does. And she's looking for self-improvement. And that was pretty cool. Very, very cool. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, understanding that like you can truly change people's lives. I had a similar experience yesterday that was just so meaningful to me. Throughout COVID, I was new to my role and leading a division, and of course, revenue was impacted. Our primary clients were hospitals and major health systems, was our largest industry vertical, followed by the public sector and energy, which were all completely decimated. So, took a big hit, and as a result, unfortunately, had to let some people go. I ended up losing my job as well. It just wasn't sustainable at that time for where the company was at. Leadership who wanted to come through, just unfortunately, the revenue was what it was, and you have to make those decisions. But one of the people that I terminated and understandably was emotional about reached out to me to thank me. And he was already doing incredible things that he'd shared with me behind the scene. And I knew that he was working part-time with us. And I really believed that he would be successful at what he was doing. And he shared with me that he's being picked up by Netflix as a documentary about the impact he's made on the world, and that he wanted to invite me into it and give me a seat. He's got year-long waiting lists, and he's like, I'm going to save one for you. So it's the least I can do. Like, you pushed me into this, and I have a different perspective on it now than I did at the time. But we appreciated how we each handled it, given that, your hands are tied sometimes in corporate life. We can't exactly say everything that we want to say at all times, but when you lead with empathy, people remember that, and eventually it comes around. And I was beyond thrilled to hear about the success he's having. It was really a great moment in my life.
That's exciting. Congratulations. That's wonderful.
Yeah, thanks. And kind of along that exciting, what are some of the most exciting results that you've seen from willingness to make changes in the workplace?
The most exciting changes is just watching the employees just be excited to come into training, and they're not thinking that it's, if you book training and your company says, oh, you need to go to this, training, and they kind of come in all grumbly, like, I don't really want to do this. And then they realize, oh, well, that went by really fast because we're engaged and we're talking and we're making those changes that we need to make, and we're having better communication. And so as you see different people, and when we do the assessments, it's like, oh, I understand how I need to communicate to this person. The way my style doesn't work for them. So I need to deliver differently. And then you watch as the conflict starts to fall away, and there's more understanding and more patience. So that's really what I've found, especially in the last few clients that we've been in. It's been a really great experience, just kind of watching the stress levels, decrease.
Yeah, I mean, we're all living in heightened stressful times. So anything we can do to decrease that and feel a little bit more secure. Have you noticed, or have you received feedback about that patience, the communication, like understanding how it lands in the business place? Something I noticed when I was fortunate to kind of be raised in companies that really value personal and professional development and put their money where their mouth was and exposed us to it. And I know that, like, through my study of crucial conversations, for instance, I was like, ooh, like, I'm really screwing up in my personal life. Have you gotten any feedback like that, where you've kind of brought in something to the workplace, but somebody's like, oh, not only can I be more effective in work, but like I'm speaking to my husband differently and my family, and like people who maybe we have a slightly stressful relationship with, but really do genuinely want a win-win. Do you have any experiences with that?
Yeah, when we do our critical thinking or our conflict resolution, it's interesting. I'll often bring in, when I deal with my kids who are in their 20s, and I will always bring in personal experiences so that people can probably look at their personal experiences. And one of the videos we show right off the bat is called "The Crisis in Leadership," and basically the video goes on to talk about the CEO of this company that really looked at the company and said, I'm going to look at the divorce rate in my company. That's how I'm going to measure success. Mm-hmm. And it's a very powerful video, because it really goes to show that anything that you do in the workplace, how you treat each other, how you treat the people around you, how you're treated, translates to what happens at home. So if you're micromanaged, or, you are yelled at all day long, you're going to not either A, you're not going to want to go home, or B, if you do go home, you're going to shut yourself off. And, and that definitely translates. So we are very, very, very much into, how each one affects the other. It's super important.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, with the Great Resignation, and kind of we're all trying to spread awareness and help prevent this, because there's amazing companies out there that want to provide for their teams and just don't know how to come through. And at the end of the day, we're all human. If we're human in the workplace, we're human outside, that authenticity. So, I'm hopeful that more and more people jump on board with this movement. Kind of with that, being revolutionary and driving this change with authenticity and vulnerability, what does being revolutionary mean to you, Sandra?
I think that it's just helping people understand that they can make change. Like you yourself, if you change your own behavior, your own way of dealing with people, if you look at someone and say, I wonder why they're unhappy, instead of like, oh, they're unhappy and I don't want to deal with them, like go a little bit deeper. I think if each and every one of us can go a little bit deeper and look at people as human beings, and knowing that everyone is going through, something, and having that understanding as you interact with others. And then also just shut down all the social media.
Yeah. That's a toxic place to be.
Yeah, stay away from toxicity. But I think for individuals, you need to take a look at yourself and how you're treating others. And I think that could make a revolutionary change, one person at a time.
Yeah, and kind of follow up to that, is what do you think prevents more people from being willing or ready to make change to their personal behavior?
Fear of not being accepted, fear of being different, fear of being judged. I think it's all kind of wrapped up in those things, and fear of being wrong. But right now there's no right or wrong right now. It's just, we just need to start to come together and get this figured out.
Yeah. And And fear it's not even real. We make it up. We
Yeah.
make it up. It exists. It exists. I have them myself, but it's not real. So understanding that, I always try to empower people to understand it's not real. And when you push through it, yes, you'll make mistakes, and yes, you'll feel foolish at moments. Like that's part of being human. That's how we learn and how we grow. But at the same time, when you start to have those like significant wins and really connect with people and improve the quality of your life and make a bigger impact on people around you, you're like, ooh, it's not so scary to push through fear after all.
And that, to that end, I got my motorcycle license in April, and everybody, I had people were just, oh, what are you doing? And, just their fears were being put on me. But I went through the class, and I'm doing, in following all the guidelines that I need to do, and being as safe as I possibly can between my gear and where I'm riding and how I'm riding. And I thought to myself, gosh, if I listened to my own internal fears and everybody else's, I wouldn't be experiencing this beautiful, amazing thing that I'm doing when I ride the coast and I look at the water, and it's just, I'm up in a mountain, and it's just amazing what's happening. And I'm just so grateful that I just pushed through and said, I'm doing this. So
ooh, I have chills. I have chills. That's incredible. Yeah. Like you open yourself up to experiences beyond your wildest imagination. One of the ways I learned that lesson very early in my life as a child, I grew up on a horse farm and was an avid equestrian. And we often purchased horses off the racetrack who otherwise wouldn't have a very great life post-career, and then retrained them as show horses and sold them. And it was kind of how we helped contribute to an expensive hobby. It was very cool. Something my mom and I did together. And my dad was kind of footing the bill. So it was our way to give back to him for allowing us to have this hobby, was to train the horses, train green horses, and then make a profit on them. And, because they were racehorses, they're very fast. And so I was in a field that was thousands of acres, at a big farm in the country. And I had galloped horses many times, but like never really opened up a racehorse, because people who don't ride don't know that they have another gear. Like you can hear it, even if you're on the ground, not the one riding it. You're going as fast as you can imagine. And then all of a sudden it sounds like a locomotive, and like your shoulders get pulled out from under you, and it clicks into gear. It's like, whoa. And then you're going like 50 miles per hour on a horse's back. Yeah. And I was, I think 11 at the time, 11 years old, and holding on to this horse who'd won every race he'd ever been in his career. He was retired early because of being a little bit hot-headed for it. He was an Olympic level horse. We sold him to go to the 2004 Olympics. And I'm just going. And the other thing people don't know about horses, they're trained to run into the bit, which is also how you stop them, pulling back. And so the only way to stop a horse who's gotten into that other gear where you're just flying and just, all right, I'm just going to hold on and experience this exhilaration, is to let go of control. You have to drop the reins, and it actually trips them up a little bit. And then you can pick their head back up and slow them down. And it takes them minutes of circling to really downshift that gear. And that, I just remember that I was like, I want to experience that feeling of going as fast as this animal can go. But I'm going to have to do the one thing I don't want to do, which is drop the reins and all control and be like, hey, buddy, please slow down. But it was really instrumental facing that fear at 11 years old, and kind of like you shared with the motorcycle, realizing what can come from it.
Yeah. That's incredible. Wow, what a story.
Thank you. It was like really something I'm privileged and honored to have had the opportunity to do. Riding horses, they teach you so much about energy and yourself and mastery, because if you're scared, they're going to be scared of whatever you're scared of. So it teaches you a lot of control of your emotions growing up around them.
That's awesome.
What are a few accomplishments, Sandra, that you're most grateful for along your journey?
I think sharing a little bit, last August, I lost my significant other, and I had, the business was only 8 months old, and, my life completely changed. And instead of kind of curling up in a ball and just kind of being, done, I really reached out to the people around me, my referral partners, and, a year and a half later, a year and a couple months later, we're thriving. Been able to put back my personal life the way that needs to be. And, I think that's the biggest accomplishment right now, is kind of getting through that. That was probably the toughest thing I've ever been through.
Yeah. I'm so sorry. And I'm sending so much love to you. You're not alone. And I think it's beautiful that you responded with passion, empathy, and calling on your tribe, because we all have a support system. It's just, like you said, we're all going through something. So when you don't call on them and ask for help and say, I need to receive right now, you're cutting yourself short at the end of the day. And that's beautiful. I think it's very inspiring, because so many of us are terrified to ask for help. I shared a little bit about you. It's a fear of mine that I'm pushing through constantly, but I think you're really, really inspiring that was only 8 months ago, and that you've had this level of transition and this level of success, despite what had to be one of the most challenging things you've ever gone through in your life.
Yeah, it was definitely tough in the beginning, because it wasn't the plan, right? The plan was we were going to do all this and get all this together and go, and I had to really reset. And part of getting my motorcycle license was something that he and I had talked about for years, and it's something he always wanted to do, and I had always, it was in the back of my mind. And when I decided last year, I'm like, I'm just going to do it. And so part of that is to honor him, and and just to keep pushing through life. It's too important, and it's too short. So
I have all the feels. I see why you're so incredibly effective at what you do. You are a very, very inspiring woman. And I just, I'm not quite finished here. I'm just moved. So thank you for just being willing to be this authentic and vulnerable. It really is inspiring, and it's making an impact on me. So thank you. I'm confident that impact will translate to others as well. Sandra, are there any questions that you wish I'd asked you today? And if so, how would you have answered?
No, I not really. I think that we covered a lot today, Nikki.
We did. I love stories. I love human stories. So that's kind of my passion. And what I like to bring to this project is just that passion of like really hearing what makes people tick and what drives them. Yeah. With that said, please tell everybody where to find you and the best way to reach out to you for more information on what you do and the impact that you make.
Sure. You can reach me at humanpowersolutions.com. I'm sorry, hpowersolutions.com. It's Sandra. Oh my goodness. It's S Kearney at hpowersolutions.com. Our phone number is 617-575-9959. We are based in Boston, but we do virtual trainings all across the country. And certain states do have grant money for training and development. So if budget's an issue, definitely reach out to us and we'll see what we can do as far as getting you funded for training. It's really, really important these days for companies to figure out a way to, get their employees engaged and retain these employees. So, we're here to help in any way we possibly can.
Thank you so much, Sandra. I wasn't aware of that, the funding from the state level. So that's, definitely a new resource for myself to kind of put in my pocketbook for future reference. And hopefully that's really resonated with others as well. So thank you so much for just being you and bringing your authentic light and your feedback and your vision to our conversation today. Super appreciative and hope you have a good one.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you having me, Nikki. Have a great day.